Hey everybody, I hope you're having a good weekend. So I wanted to show you something new on these hieroglyphs today. We're going to take a look at a little bit of repeatability because we're going to go across culture real quick. But just as a refresher, what I wanted to show you here is this Fibonacci spiral that you see right here. And what we determined so far is that from the bottom of the sacrum, where the coccyx is, right where you see at the bottom of this was staff right up here, until you get to this mid-phi line, and at the mid-phi line is where the axis and the atlas vertebrae start. And you can see that because this right here, where those four holes are, is basically the same as the atlas vertebrae. Here's a little picture again as a reminder. You can see where the atlas vertebrae fits into this top thing right here. And I've already shown you a video of how difficult it is to get all these things into place. You can see the bottom thing here, right here where the two-pronged was staff is. And you can see how the coccyx comes down. And there's this little separation between the coccyx and where it touches the tailbone. And that is what this was staff is doing right here. So when we come over here and take a look at this, we can see how it fits right in there. So anything right above this mid-phi line, that's where you begin the axis and the atlas vertebrae, and that is also where the beginning of the brainstem starts. So everything below the mid-phi line is the rest of the backbone all the way down to the sacrum, or the bottom of the coccyx. And anything above the mid-phi line begins the brainstem. One thing that we also determined too was that the Egyptians were very exact in the way that they showed the reason these three come together that you see like this is because these three lines that you see inside this golden rectangle also come together, with the crucifix or the cross being right at the top of these three lines coming together. And so what we determined is we can see that there are some other things in here as far as the creases in this. If you've watched Magical Egypt, these creases are important because this right here marks the beginning of the rib cage. This marks the end of the rib cage, and I want you to notice where he has his hand right here. His hand is going to be right in the center of the rib cage. So now we're going to flip over and take a look at some Babylonian art in which they're doing the same thing, practicing enlightenment. And you'll notice that they're holding a pine cone up to Ashur, which is the guy inside the winged disc. And basically E.A. Wallace Budge has already determined that Ashur, Asari, Asar, Osiris, these are all the same. And they represent the pineal gland at the very top of the tree of life. So this is what we're going to look at. A couple things to note right offhand is you're going to notice the tree that you see right here. And you're going to notice the pine cone that he's holding right here. And what this actually makes right here with the wings and this pole is something called a caduceus. Maybe some of you are familiar with that. Or the staff of Hermes would rather be another way of putting it. Notice where he's got his hand right here in the middle of this thing. We've got several things we're going to take a look at here and show that they're doing the same thing here that we're seeing in the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Now here's what we can determine with this tree right here. The very bottom where the floor is on this tree is where it starts. The mid-phi line, as you'll notice, starts right where the tail feathers are. And the top, right here, ends where these top feathers are. And as you can see, it spirals around and it follows his body here on the left and then crucifies right here in the center. And so here's our first look. As you can see where these red lines are, I've got marked the bottom of the tail feathers, where the wings at the very top end. And so there's our mid-phi line right here. And this is also where the axis and the atlas start as well. And if you take a look right on both of these, you'll see that the disc that this guy is in is sitting right on top of the throne, and you'll also notice that the sacrum, coccyx, is touching the ground, and as you can see, it follows up and it goes along the curve of this tree, going straight up, and then right there at the beginning of the tail feathers is where the brainstem starts. As you can see, we also have the Eye of Ra overlaid on this, so you can see that as well. And right here in the middle, you can see that also that the Eye of Ra on the top follows the curvature that you see right here. Here's a close-up look when we get up to the top here in the head area. There are some indications. If you notice, this curve right here follows right along his back, and right here is where the crucifix is, right here. And this top phi line is where the top of the wings are. This mid phi line that we have right here is where the axis and the atlas vertebrae start. They're doing the same thing, and they're holding the pine cone up to this guy because this area right here represents the pineal gland, right in the center of this thing. And here's another view showing the axis and the atlas, and you can see that when the sacrum, or the bottom of the coccyx, is touching this line down here, that when we move up, that when we move our axis and atlas, stretch this whole thing out to where the axis and the atlas are just above the mid-phi line, you can see that the atlas vertebrae ends where the second set of tail feathers is. So the width of these two has been gauged by the width of these bottom tail feathers right here. You can also see the rib cage, the width of the body, and even the way that the bones and the vertebrae stick out right there. But that's not it. I've got even more for you. From a frontal view, you can see that we have the width of his body matching the width of the tree, and once again the atlas and the axis are sitting right above the mid-phi line. And then here is the real kicker on this one, is because when you take a look at the bottom right here where the sacrum starts, you can see that there are these two areas that look like holes that I've got colored in for you in red. And when we take a look at the bottom of the pelvis as compared to what we see up here, those two holes actually cover the area that you see right here, and the bottom of the sacrum that you see right here fits into that groove just like that. And then finally, we take a look at a comparison between the two. So what they're doing is the same thing. The only difference is the way that they're doing it. And one of the things that you're going to notice is that where his hand is right here is basically where the heart is. And you're going to notice he has his hand in the same place on this one as here as well. Here are the two places where we see the axis and the atlas start right after the mid-phi line. And you can see clear indications where the second tail feathers start right here, where the atlas ends. So all we have basically here is a difference in the way that they're showing them, but they're showing the same thing from the sacrum to the pineal gland. So I just wanted to show that to you. It appears that the Egyptians were not the only ones practicing enlightenment, and this also means that these other guys knew Phi as well. This also means that they were knowledgeable in these things as well. And what this represents right here, based on this hieroglyph. Same thing that the Egyptians are doing. It basically means that they're showing the human body, and they're showing this system of enlightenment. This is the tree of life. And this is basically a caduceus. And right up here at the top of the caduceus is where your top chakra is. So I hope that helps everybody. Y'all take care, and I'll talk to you soon.